again is relatively new faculty member who has joined us, I don't remember, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago. And Dinesh, his background comes actually from mechanical engineering. He came to computer science from, through mechanical engineering, and through the nature of his work, you can see, you probably saw his demo, spectacular demo in the lobby. And I'm extremely happy to hire him from University of British Columbia in Vancouver. And the first time I heard of Dinesh was from the Dinesh School, the Taxa School is the head of CBIM, the new center, which is combining vision, graphics, and computer science. And again, I don't want to put Dinesh on the spot, but I heard that one of his SIGGRAPH presentations got a standing ovation. So you know what to do after, right? All right, I'm very happy to introduce Dinesh. Great. Thank you.
First challenge to get all these connected up. Let's work.
Okay.
So thank you all. I wanted to talk about this slightly spiced up topic. I had a boring title, but Tomas asked me to spice it up a little bit. So my alternate was reality bites. Take that. So this is work with all my students in the multisensory computation lab, and I hope you all had a chance to look at the demo that they've put together outside. Actually, let me take a minute to say that they've been working tremendously hard on this all night, and also with the help of the LCSR people. That really it's been a terrific effort. So I just want to, give them a big hand. Most of them haven't slept all night, so that's why they might appear a little unshaven. Okay, so I want to talk about how we can synthesize reality, and of course there may be many reasons for doing that. One of the problems we face in not just in AI but in all areas of computer science is that a potential solution has already been created by Hollywood, and so we always have to try to catch up to this grand vision that has been out there. So one vision is the Star Trek holodeck. So you want to create reality, you walk into this thing, and boom, anything can be created. So including, for example, you can even create clothes. If you get shot by a bullet in the holodeck, it's actually real kinds of things. But fiction aside, actually, the holodeck shows you the kinds of things that this kind of a system would be helpful for. You can virtually prototype all kinds of new designs. You can evaluate processes and so on. So the problem with all these Hollywood-type solutions is, there's a little bit of a missing step that we have to fill in, and that's where, I guess, research and things of this come in. So we have to do the boring job of actually making it work. But I want to start making that work, making what is possible, and to a certain extent, research is the art of the possible. So what can you actually do to create reality by a computer? Well, it's not enough to just make pictures. So for example, here's a person looking at an environment. Just looking at a picture is like a movie. It's not entirely realistic. What you really need is to be able to actually perform actions, to do stuff with this virtual environment. And this action should produce responses. And the theme of my talk is going to be that these responses fundamentally have to be multisensory. The world works that way, your brain works that way, so we got to make our computers also work in this fashion. So for the rest of the talk, I'm going to quickly just walk through a couple of the steps. First of all, try to convince you that multisensory computation isn't just a convenient title for a lab, but it's something that we really have to be thinking about. It's the next step beyond just graphics or auditory displays and things of that sort. We really have to integrate all these things together. Then I'll talk a little bit about some of the details of what kind of things that we're doing. So why do we want to have multisensory computation? Well, one reason is if you look at our view with the world, so for example, I have an object like this and I drop it, you experience this object falling by looking at the change in the motion of this object. You hear the object, and if you are me, you'd also actually feel it. And the world is full of these kind of correlated phenomena that we are evolved to exploit. So let me say a little bit more about how that works. Again, by giving you another example, here's a little, actually pretty old example. How many of you have heard of this McGurk effect? 1, 2, so it's new to a lot of you. So I'm going to show you a little, I know that. That's the gate sometimes. It's going to come up. I say yes. Okay, so I'm going to show you a video, and I want you to, this person is going to say a couple of one-syllable things. I want you to pay attention, look at the video, and see how many different syllables this person utters. Ba, 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 ba. Okay, so how many did you hear? Four? How many people will say 4? So quite a few of you. So now let's do this experiment again, but this time I'm going to replay this exact same video, but close your eyes. Okay, no cheating. Close your eyes and just listen. Ba, ba, ba. So there's exactly one syllable that's just repeated over and over again. The difference is that the visual cue was different. So that shows that really, this by the way is called the McGurk effect, and actually there are some other subtle interesting things about it. It isn't just that vision is dominating the audio, for example. The last one, you hear the same ba sound, you see ga, and what you think you perceive is something entirely different. So there is this multisensory computation that's being done in your brain all the time without your knowing. So the way we want to create reality is essentially to convince your brain that it is perceiving this reality. And we have to understand how information is processed in the brain. For example, we all know that vision is a very important part for us primates, but the primary visual cortex is actually a relatively small area at the back of your brain like that. Similarly, hearing is very important, but the primary auditory cortex is actually also pretty small. Similarly, with the motor cortex, multisensory cortex, etc., large parts of your brain are actually devoted to doing this multisensory association of all the stimuli it's receiving, and actually this kind of thing happens even much earlier. It happens in the brainstem, and so on. So that's if you're going to build user interfaces, we have to respect that basic architectural constraint in humans. And of course, there are lots of other reasons, and I think these are the same reasons why humans also have multisensory perception. That is, it can be more robust if you take multiple cues. You can also use sensory substitution for people with disabilities, for example. If you have multisensory cues, some people will attend to a particular type of cue, some people will attend to some other kinds of cue. So let me make that sort of general discussion a little bit more concrete. by exploring how you would, do some multisensory simulation in a particular context, which is making contact. Okay, and one of the things that people would feel when they get into this area is, isn't simulation just looking up what these scientists and engineers have done and implementing it? And the answer is no, because when I try to do multisensory interaction, you have to actually pay attention to things like, do you want to be accurate or responsive? And what we find is, for example, for scientific simulation, really accuracy is the hard constraint. But when you're talking about interaction, you have to design algorithms such that responsiveness is the hard constraint, and it gets more and more accurate given the amount of time you have. And so I'll say a little bit more about all of these kind of things. All I want to convey with this slide is that multisensory simulation isn't just looking up equations in a physics book and implementing it, but it actually requires an entire new way of thinking about simulation, because the constraints are different. For example, we're not trying to just simulate the signals of the motion of this object. What is really important is that we detect an event, such as a contact occurred, and then render the event with forces and sounds, etc. Okay, so maybe I'll skip the sort of the philosophy and take this very concrete problem of doing contact. Okay, so how do we do contact simulation? We could look up these classical methods in textbooks, but none of them actually work when you're trying to do interactive multisensory simulation because of perceptual constraints. To get good audio, as maybe Sri would have told you, despite MP3 compression, etc., you want to be able to synthesize the sounds at very high rates, like at 23 microseconds is all you have to compute when you sample. Whereas for haptics, for example, you have to do this in 1 millisecond. How can we do all of these kinds of things? Let's skip a little bit faster to catch up on time. So our idea is that we have to restructure the simulation such that we can, first of all, detect various contact events in our simulation. But once you detect a contact event, you want to render separately the audio, the haptics, and if there's visual deformation, all of those things by different optimized algorithms. Okay, so let me show you a little video just to which some of you have seen before. This is an example of a simulation of this little marble sort of bouncing around inside a wok. To perceive this, of course, you could just draw, I can show you right now, what it would look like is just a, you can still sort of hear it a little bit, but if you just look at it visually, you don't get a lot of subtle things about this particular motion. For example, this little marble bounced several times, and then it went from bouncing to sliding to rolling. All of those things, it's not possible to see visually. But if you now do this with sound, just let me turn down. You can actually see, you can perceive events that are not even on the screen because the sampling rate of the video is too low. Let me show you this once again. So you can even see, for example, it bounced a couple of times and then it went from bouncing to rolling, and you can see you can hear the difference in that example. Okay, so I'm actually going to sort of skip over a lot of the details. You could do similar things, for example, with multisensory interaction with things like soft tissue. This is the kind of thing that you would want to do for like a surgical simulation when you're training people. It's not sufficient to just show deformation of an object, but you also have to provide force feedback using devices called haptic interfaces. And I'm pleased to say that Rutgers has actually got a lot of work on haptics. Also Dimitri Metaxas lab is doing some of this kind of work, and also in electrical engineering. But how do we interact with this tissue, compute the global deformation at like 60 times a second, and compute the contact forces that you feel at 1,000 times per second on a sort of an ordinary kind of computer? Well, I don't have time to go into the details, but the idea is you have to restructure and come up with new types of algorithms to allow you to do that. So this is sort of just live footage shot off the screen showing, a laparoscopic device interacting with this tissue. You can see this global deformation, and if you had a force feedback device, you could feel the force. Okay, so let me just. So that's sort of taking this particular aspect, which is how to model contact in a multisensory way. At Rutgers, we are actually trying to push more towards the human aspect of all of this. We're trying to model, first of all, we're trying to see how humans can model objects in a multisensory way, and also we're trying to model how humans themselves behave in a multisensory fashion. And one side effect of this is that we are developing some better environments for multisensory interaction. I'm going to skip over this for a second. If I can. Let's do this. So the idea is as follows. So what I showed you earlier is that we can create these multisensory simulations with produce sounds, with produce deformation, etc. But how do you actually acquire these models? Where do these models come from? Okay, and that is in some sense one of the biggest problems facing all areas such as computer graphics to anything else. And to a certain extent, learning is all about acquiring models in a sort of a semi-automated fashion. So in previous work at UBC, for example, we built this robotic system that can actually perform a lot of measurements. So our focus at Rutgers now is to say, why not let people make the measurements? So we let people do what they are really good at, which is making decisions about how good the model is. Is it good enough for a particular task? Because it's extremely hard to specify what is the quality of the model that you would accept. Whereas, boring things such as learning, I should call it learning, I should say estimation, estimation, displaying the data, providing all this rapid feedback, let the computers do it. So we want to actually get people back in the loop. So our sort of vision is something like this, and this is what Tim Edmonds is working on for his PhD work. So the idea is, if you want to build a model of that dragon, you hold it in your hand, you have a laser scanner in your hand, you make a scan, we give you immediately feedback about how good it is. If there are some missing bits, it would take forever for an automated robotic system to figure out what's wrong with it, but a human can see it instantly. And so then the human goes and makes a precise measurement at a particular point with this device that we built earlier called a watt. And we provide essentially the support structure to make this happen. So people build their own models, and we make it extremely easy. So that's sort of the vision that we are pursuing here in the lab. And to do that, a fundamental requirement was that we really need an environment which is designed to support this kind of multisensory interaction. So in the last year and a half, we've been building this thing called the Haven, and this is the Rutgers haptic, auditory, and visual environment. And this is sort of a fancy term which took us a while to come up with. We went through other iterations like rave, and I found that it was a trademark of some company. So it's essentially a small room in which a person can sit and interact with things. You have a rear projection display, a large screen thing like that. Also, you have front projection display on a table, so you can project 3D models which you can look at stereoscopically. What makes this room so interesting is, first of all, it's highly sensed. So we have this motion capture system that can track little markers that you can stick on your body. So the motion of things like people's arms and hands can be tracked at up to 1,000 times a second using this system. And in fact, the nice motions that you see of the night outside are actually acquired by this system tracking real people moving, and then we are recording this actual detailed motion. We have stereo vision cameras. We have one currently which is outside. The room also is multisensory, so we want to display spatialized audio. There's a 12-speaker auditory display. We will have sort of microphones in there. The whole environment is actually has very low noise. So there is very low acoustic noise because it's a really acoustic chamber, as well as there's very low light seeping in. And that's very important because people build these nice displays and they put their loud projectors right next to people's ears so that you can't actually hear what's going on in it and so on. So there are a whole bunch of sensors in there one have time to talk to. And there's a gigabit network which actually controls a large amount of machines. So this is really, the Haven is essentially a one-stop shopping place. You walk in it and you can get a huge number of measurements at interactive rates, and you can use it for a lot of different things. So I want to show you a quick video of this is a few months old now, but gives you a sense of the kind of things that are available. So this is what the Haven looks like. This is you're having fun with editing tools. So this is what a wide-band motion capture system looks like. It's got some infrared strobes that it can actually use to make sure that there's no crosstalk between different cameras. There are 6 cameras looking at people in there. We're always going to show some servers. Okay, this is the rear projection display, which is sort of a large display. This is sort of a front projection. This is an older version. Right now we're working on this a 3D display with so here's the kind of thing that you can do. You could scan with a handheld scanner and then acquire fine details using this wireless haptic texture sensor just where you need it. So that's the idea. And this is essentially shows how we do the motion capture for the night. We're also doing some work on detailed face capture because you can put very small markers on people's faces. There's also similar work on face capture, I think, that Dimitri is working on using different kind of technology. One of the things we're interested in is how grasping behavior in humans works so that we can synthesize these kind of things. So we have a number of things set up for this. This is an interesting sensor. I'll talk a little bit more in a second. So this is a pressure sensor pad. So it's like a little carpet. You walk on it, and it measures the pressure distribution under your foot. So what could you do with something like that? Well, you could do a lot because the pressure under your foot, remember, everything is sort of multisensory. The pressure under your foot is highly correlated with how you're moving. So you don't have to always look at a person's movement to see how they're moving. You can tell a lot by looking at how the pressures under the foot are changing. So let me just show you that in a second. Oops, so I have another slide show that, one of the things that the Haven could do, maybe we could actually build something like a holodeck in the Haven, but Montero, a couple of rants coming through kind of thing. Okay, so I said, what can you do with this multisensory information? Well, one of the things you can do is you can measure human movement like this, and also simultaneously measure the pressure under your feet, so you learn the correlations between the two. So now, this motion capture system we have is great, but it's requires you to wear spandex, and and some people like that, but some people don't. But for the rest of us, it would be nice if you learn this thing and then you just step on this pad and you walk around, and the system somehow knows how you are moving. And so we can actually do something like that. So this is work of a student of mine, again. So the idea is you build up these databases and you learn the correlations between the two, and then what you can do is you can look at an input pressure under the feet like this. You can sort of try to find some nearby foot pressure by some fast indexing technique, reconstruct what the full motion was, and that gives you a reasonably good guess about how the character is actually moving. And so here are some results. So for example, some things are easy, so you can get the fact that the person kicked, but you can't actually see exactly how high he or she kicked, but that's okay for a lot of applications. And similarly, you don't know, you can't really tell the difference. There is a sort of a null space which you can't really resolve, but you can still do quite a bit. So, okay, so, how much time do I have? 5 minutes, okay. So I just wanted to say that we are also looking at various other aspects of human motion, and I just want to quickly mention one phenomenon, which is that the graphics hardware today is actually becoming, many of you know this, is becoming very interesting from a computer architecture point of view, because essentially they are stream processors which you can buy. I mean, today, very few research labs are developing their own stream processors, and it's extremely expensive. But you can buy a $300 graphics card, and it has a very powerful stream processor with an enormous amount of floating point computation on board. So one of the things you can do is these kind of very complex human simulations that involve tissue deformation and things of the sort can be done in graphics hardware with some pre-computations. This won't make any sense to you, but I will skip that and show you a movie. So just to show the kind of full body deformations like this that would require an enormous amount of computation and with supercomputers, etc. By pre-computing the responses, we can actually simulate these on this kind of card that this is used is sub $100 right now. So without any kind of this kind of tissue deformation, you get something pretty boring. Using this dirt, which is cheap, we can get some pretty realistic human motion. So we are interested in a lot of different aspects of human motion. Also, more recently, on how humans, this is showing various modes that you pre-compute this. These at runtime. Stop harassing this guy. summarize, I think we can build reality to a certain extent, at least to the extent that it's useful, which is all we care about. We don't want to necessarily, do the holodeck. But this requires that we do the rapid computations of these correlated multisensory stimuli in response to human interaction. And to make that possible, we need new types of physical models, which I didn't have much time to go into, but they essentially turn the kind of classical models upside down in terms of what the requirements are. We need this kind of interactive, low latency kind of simulation algorithms, and we also need ways of actually acquiring these models from reality. So that actually, and this is exactly why we need learning, so that you can actually just point a camera at the real world or get some measurements from the real world and learn these models. And the haven that we're building, I think, provides like an ideal environment to do these kind of things. So I look forward to hearing from you about any interest you have in any of these things. Thanks. Questions?
Is the haven only used for computer science, or is it shared with any other types of computer engineers?
It's a facility it's in computer science in a lab. We're open to collaboration at the research level. So but we're not. It's not a public. Just a general facility people can walk into and use.
What are computational limits? Do you see any computational limits at this point? What could you do if you had more computational?
No, of course. It's really in a way all about computational limits, because when reality is infinitely complex, so there is always so the entire art here is to do the best you can under the computational limits. So the difference, I think, is, everybody has known this for a while. In scientific computation, you know that you need an answer to this particular question within, you say, I need 4 decimal places correct. And you try to do it as fast as you can. Our new limits, the new game is, we want the answer within 1 millisecond. And give me the most accurate answer that you can. So so the limits are always there, because the reality is essentially infinitely complex. But we want to be able to do more and more accurate modeling. So our appetite is also infinite for computation.